Yeah, no, we're good. So, what's up, Robert? How you doing?
I'm good.
Hanging in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you start work again?
No, and I was working, just kind of helping a friend of mine, and he got busy doing some other stuff. So, last couple of weeks, I've just been kind of having downtime. I was telling Raymel, like, I since I'm kind of being lazy during the day and not getting up early and working all day, I've been like having a hard time sleeping again. So, I've been staying up all night,
Insomnia.
falling asleep like early in the morning, and then sleeping in. So, I don't know. My schedule's getting all messed up.
I have a problem waking up, man. I love sleep. I don't know what happened. I used to not sleep at all, and now I sleep all the time.
Yeah, I have a problem. I have to make myself go to sleep because I want to stay up longer, but it's not like a physical thing. Like I go to sleep once I lay down, but my mind just wants to
Yeah.
stay up, stay up. But I have no problem. Once I hit the bed, it's over.
See, that's the problem with me. I'll lay there with my eyes closed and just try to even like count sheep in my mind or I even listen to like sleepy music or something, just trying to fall asleep. And I just won't. After like an hour laying there, I'm like, forget it. I'm getting up.
You ever try audiobooks?
Yeah, I've tried all kinds of stuff.
I do audiobooks when I go to sleep. I always have my one earpiece in, and then I'll start following along with the book, and then it's got to be a book that you want to hear though.
Right.
I'm still on chapter 1 though. I gotta restart it.
He's like I fall asleep
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
Well, I used to do that whenever I was, like life was normal and I was working all the time and stuff. I like TV in the evenings after like 7 p.m. I was terrible. I'd start watching a TV show, and before the show would even start, I'd be out all the time. Like, have to watch shows over and over and stuff. But like right now, I can start binge watching something, and I'll watch like whole seasons in one day or one night or whatever. It's crazy because I just can't seem to fall asleep.
Yeah. Did you get your rim fixed?
No. That's why we were talking about it. I didn't end up getting up till like noon or something.
That's why when I texted you, you were like, no.
I was like, not yet. I thought about getting up and going, but I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll deal with it.
Can't even imagine what that would be like, sleeping till noon. I bet it'd be amazing. But
I didn't go to sleep till like 7 o'clock this morning.
Well, that's not the thing. We did a restart, so I got the 3-year-old, so there's no sleep until noon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you play video games?
No.
No.
Well, I play on my phone. I play that golf game Golf Clash.
Golf Clash, yeah. I used to be hooked on that. I got away from it. I play a bubble game now.
I got a baseball game.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every now and then I still go back to solitaire.
Oh.
I'll bust out solitaire and just.
A lot of 60-plus-year-olds, that's kind of like their thing. They like to get some solitaire in from time to time, I hear.
Yeah, my mom's on Candy Crush all the time. She's 60 plus. So how many days you have?
170 today.
Wow, man! Congratulations.
Heck yeah, man, that's huge.
How's it feel?
Good. I didn't think I'd get this far. Actually, not when I first came. I thought because leading up to that, I wouldn't make it more than like 2 days at a time before I'd start. I don't know, though. A lot of stuff changed for me for some reason. I kind of hit that rock bottom. And once I got into a program and stuff and started doing things a little bit different, for some reason, I had been dealing with like seriously bad anxiety for like 2 years. And I don't even know, like, grace of God or something came in and like lifted a lot of that, because that was some of the things that was forcing me back to drinking. I just couldn't deal with the way I felt after like a couple of days of sobriety. It was like seriously like at a high, and so I'd be like, forget it, I give up, I'm just gonna drink, because it was kind of the only place I'd find relief. And then once I was like wrapped up in it, the alcohol would help a little bit at the time, but then things would get worse the next day, and the start of the.
Yeah, your anxiety stemmed from you future tripping, or just life in general?
Well, I think it's kind of a medical issue, because when I was like 18, I dealt with anxiety, like panic attack level anxiety, real bad, and I just sort of worked through it with like trying to do, I called it kind of like exposure therapy and stuff, like do the things that would make me have panic attacks, and slowly I kind of convinced myself that or my brain really, that like I wasn't going to die or I wasn't going to like go crazy or something, you know, really bad happen. I would always survive. And so it started to slowly kind of wear off. And then I didn't deal with it for a lot of years. And then I think I got laid off like 3 times in the last like 5 years or whatever. And
COVID.
I think that the sort of the PTSD kind of thing of getting laid off and then going back to work and then seeing sort of the writing on the wall, I started getting stressed out at work because it was like things were just kind of not real secure. And, you know, I tried to work with my job at the time and sort things out to where it wouldn't, you know, it would just be a little more secure. And it got to where, like, even before I got laid off from that job, I was already starting to have a lot of anxiety, a lot of like extra stress, overwhelmed all the time by just stuff. And then when I finally did get laid off, things kind of came crashing. I got another job pretty quick, kind of relieved things, but then even that job was kind of a whole different world for me. And, you know, it got stressful pretty quick. And then COVID kind of came back, a big wave of COVID. So like businesses started shutting down and stuff. And I was doing sales stuff at that time. And it was hard to like get out there and really be, you know, as productive as I knew I needed to. And so anyways, that got stressful. The anxiety really started kicking in again. And then I got laid off from that job just because of the kind of nature of the industry.
Yeah.
And, you know, then I got full blown bad anxiety, like just, it's like crippling anxiety to the point where, and I was trying to work with my psychiatrist and stuff to figure something out that would help with it. And I never really got it under control. Then I started drinking a little more often just for like celebrations and things like that. But I would notice like, oh man, it's such a relief like when I drink. And so my mind was like, I should start doing that more often. I find relief there. And
yeah, I knew, I worked with a kid that he all of a sudden had a anxiety attack. I mean, this kid was like 6'4", 6'5". I don't know. He was a big kid, you know, and I mean, he was like in a ball, just tears, just waterfall, just crippling anxiety. Just couldn't get him to calm down, couldn't get him to relax, to try and talk him out of it. So we started working with him, started talking with him, and, you know, let him know everything's okay. You were fine. You're safe. You're whatever, you know, whatever you think of in that time to get him relief, because he was just like it was like a good 15, 20 minutes. I mean, it maybe wasn't that long, but it seemed like that long. It took a while, and eventually, you know, it was at work, so we got him a ride home. We gave him a ride, and he was able to go see a doctor, and you know, because he had suffered with it in the past, so once he came out of it, he knew what to do. He called his doctor, he called his mom, and got all that straightened out. But that was like my first real instance with that type of, you know, that crippling, like you're talking about. Right. And it was scary because I don't know,
you've never had to deal with anything like that yourself, as far as anxiety goes.
Yeah. I mean, and you can't. I mean, not that being big has anything to do with it, but man, this is a big guy, and you know, he's just curled up in a ball and just flood, you know, of tears, and it was just, I was like, wow, you know, that kind of changed my mind, because at first I was like, anxiety attack. I thought of them like migraines. I thought migraines are not real,
not that
until
bad.
I had one.
Well, that's the thing. I've known people along the way that are just like, just get over it, like nothing's happening.
Like they tell us,
you can just get over it, you know? Yeah.
Just stop.
Exactly. And it's like, if I could, there'd be no way in the world I would wish that kind of anxiety on anybody. Because for me, like you were explaining, it lasted like 15 minutes. Well, I would be in like a loop where I could kind of come to like like an high level anxiety, but not panic, but just feeling like really like stressed and like really like negative, like something bad's going to happen, but I'm not necessarily panicking. and then my mind would start racing and it'd whirlwind into a full-blown panic attack where your mind just can go crazy with panic. Like you start thinking something's going wrong with your heart, or your organs are going to fail or whatever. And it's like, I know that's probably not going to happen, but it's all in your brain. Like your mind's just telling you something bad is about to go down.
And it's not one specific thing. It's just something bad.
Yeah.
That's all as far as it gets.
Well, the way I've heard it described is it's kind of an irrational sense of impending doom. Like you don't really have a reason for it. You just because the way your body feels, and like the adrenaline's kicking in because like the fight or flight mode is happening for kind of no reason. So then your brain starts to try to figure out, like, give reason to what's going on. And so kind of anything you've ever heard about, like how it feels to have a heart attack, you start thinking like, oh, I think my arm's kind of hurting. My heart. Am
I having a stroke?
yeah. Like I think I'm getting tunnel vision. I'm getting lightheaded. Like you just start psyching yourself up, and then it goes. It builds on it, starts snowballing to the point where you're like super freaked out. And it would happen to me at work and stuff, and I would try to just hold it in, like not let people know that I was having a panic attack real bad. But inside, I wanted to just like run away and like, I didn't even know, like just go freak out or whatever. But you don't want to look all weird. So there's that part of you that's like, that's like, I'll just sit here and hold it in. Yeah.
That's not good for you, man.
But the drinking.
Well, when I would drink, after, about 3 or 4 drinks, like this real sense of like, I could breathe, like this, it would come off me, and I'd be like, man, I was just tripping. And I would almost feel normal to the point where it was like, I couldn't even think of why I would feel that way. It's like, why was I tripping so bad? Like I'm fine. Like I feel good, but then because of my alcoholic tendencies, once I start, I have that allergy. So I'm on, I don't stop till I pass out or whatever. Yeah. And then once I'm like really roped into the routine, then, I basically try to drink to the point to pass out. Cause if I don't drink enough, then I'll start to it'll start to wear off, and I'll start to have like crazy anxiety and just bad, like negative stuff, whatever. So, I just try to drink till I pass out. Then when I wake up, I try to drink again as soon as I can, just to avoid all that.
When you said that you got when you dealt with that in like what, preteen or teen?
It was like teenager, yeah.
So when you dealt with that back then, was that something that when you said that you go through, that you would just face your fears or go through something that was fearful to you? Was that prescribed by a doctor, or was that just you?
No,
Did
it
you
was
go see
me.
somebody?
It was me, and then there was a book that because anxiety kind of runs in my family. So when I started having bad panic attacks, I didn't even really know that both my parents deal with it. My sister deals with it, and but I was telling my mom, what I was going through, and she loaned me this book or something that was about like panic attacks, and so it just described a lot of different stuff. And I kind of formulated, the approach I took, I guess, just from what I gathered from that book. It wasn't like it directly said, oh, do this and this should help. It was just some of the things, the experiences that were described in this book caused me to think, well, because I realized along the way, like when you accepted the fact that maybe I am going to just die or whatever, then it would start to be like a relief. If you were fighting against it, then it was terrifying. But as soon as you're like, whatever, it is what it is, I guess I'm gonna die.
It's almost like that once you get at peace with it.
Yeah, it was like the acceptance thing. It's like once you accept, all of a sudden it would kind of start to go away. But then you start using that as a tool, and then you're like, oh, but this time it's a trick. So it's this time it might be really something going wrong or whatever.
Oh, you trick yourself out of the trick.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was terrible. But with time, because to be honest, I was doing like meth in high school and stuff. And the first panic attack I had, I was on a lot of meth, and I was all screwed up, and I thought I OD'd basically. I was like, oh man, I did too much this time. Finally overdid it. My heart's going to stop. I know, like, I'm bad. And my friends are like, you're just tripping. And I'm like, no. And I started walking. I was going to walk to KMC at the time. I was over off like Haley and Bernard. And I would walk for a while, tripping out. And then I'd start to feel a little bit better. And I was like, oh, but I don't want to get in trouble. And I don't want to, get the cops involved because they're going to know I'm on drugs. And they're going to tell my parents. So I'd start walking back. I did this like half the night, just tripping out. Finally, I decided against going to the hospital. I went back. It was kind of a blessing because after that, it was kind of the beginning of the end of me doing meth because I got real scared of meth. Yeah. But I also got scared of like everything else. I got scared of like I got to be like a germaphobe. I was like weird about taking even like cough medicine or Tylenol or something because everything I would start to feel like it was doing something I didn't want it to do to me. But and even like smoking pot stuff, which I never super liked. I did it a lot. I don't really understand why because it wasn't something I enjoyed a lot. But it ended up being kind of a part of that therapy at that time where I was like, well, I had a really good like best friend at the time that I hung with all the time. And I would be like, all right, well, I'm going to smoke. And then if I start flopping around like a fish or something, you got to promise me you're going to call 911 or whatever. He's like, I got you. I know you're just tripping, but I'm good. Yeah, it was scary.
That's a good friend.
Yeah.
But most friends would have just let you.
Well, he kind of knew I was tripping.
Yeah.
Because we hung out with each other for years already, but he was like, I'll definitely get you help if something severe happens, So having that kind of in my back pocket or whatever, and then I would just do stuff like that, like smoke weed or like I had a problem going in like movie theaters because there's just too many people around and I felt like everybody was like breathing all my air and stuff. Yeah. And I'd start feeling all choked out. It was weird. And I'd just be like, I got to go. I couldn't even make it through a movie. I quit going to the movies and stuff. But then at that time, I just forced myself to go through it, go sit in a movie. And even though I was like full blown panic to the hill after the fact, when nothing happened and I didn't die or whatever, and nothing happened, then my brain started slowly, it was hard to convince my brain after a while that something severe was going to happen because it just wasn't in all these scenarios that I would put myself in.
Play the tape back and nothing ever happened.
Yeah, it was like, it's not happening. Also, I ran into a girl in school that suffered from panic attacks. We ended up having a TA period together, same period. And I just noticed her one day having a panic attack. I was like, are you having a panic attack? And she's like, yeah, you know about that or whatever? And I was like, oh, I have them bad. And so it was kind of at the same time I was going through my little self-therapy kind of thing or whatever. And
your treatment?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just her and I sharing like our experiences, like our stories about dealing with panic and all the like craziness that comes with it. Cause it's all irrational, but you just can't, like, if you're affected by it, there's nothing you can do to stop it,
So you had them all the way up till you started drinking, and then that would help a little bit. And then, what's changed now though for you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, a couple things changed. One, I started the program and I started, going right away as well. Basically the same week I started that, the program I was in. And I think just relying on my higher power again and praying and stuff was good. But like I said, I don't really know exactly what caused it to kind of go away. But after a couple weeks of being at my program, I also met with my psychiatrist, and I had been taking Xanax for like the 2 years before. And I told him, now that I'm in a substance, abuse program or whatever, I should probably get off Xanax because it's probably a good idea. And he switched me to a drug called Buspar, and that may be also just super more effective for me than the Xanax, because Xanax is kind of like a reactive drug. You start having a panic attack, you take it, and it calms you down. It's similar to alcohol, but see, he never raised my dose over the 2 years or anything, so I was kind of at a point where the Xanax wasn't really that helpful for me. It was
just took more.
It occasionally, well, what I would do when I would drink, because I didn't want to mix Xanax and alcohol or whatever, so I would not take my Xanax for like days while I was drinking, then I'd have a little bit of a surplus.
Okay.
So then the days when I decide, all right, I'm going to try to stop drinking, I'd go a couple days. If I started having like bad anxiety and stuff, then I'd kind of catch up.
Yeah.
I'd take what I had.
Yeah.
And it would help a little bit like the first couple times I take, but yeah, I don't know. I think that I have a tendency to and probably with alcohol is sort of the same, like build a kind of a tolerance to that stuff quick. So it works maybe the first time I use it after a long time or something. But when I'm having panic attacks after panic attacks every day and trying to take Xanax to help, I'd probably have to be on a big old high dosage to actually.
Yeah. I didn't have crippling anxiety, but I do have it. And the psychiatrist that I see, he put me on, I think it's Zoloft.
Yeah, I take an antidepressant. It's called Effexor, because it's supposed to help more with anxiety. I mean, I took Zoloft back when I was young. I did go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or something back then, and they prescribed me with Zoloft. But after I was on it for like a month, I hated the way I felt. I went from being like a very like passionate, go-getting kind of person, like always living life, whatever. And when I got on that Zoloft, I just felt numb. Like it was like
I've heard that about Zoloft. Yeah.
It just made me feel like not.
That's probably why I like it.
They prescribed it to me when I first got into the program and talked to the psychiatrist. I just never took it because I was spooked of it. Doesn't really make sense for an alcoholic and a drug addict to be scared of drugs, but prescription drugs always scared me. You know what I mean?
It's funny, huh?
Street drug coming from this dirty bum guy over here, drug
Yeah,
dealer.
it's all good.
I'll take that all day. Like, hey, what's in this pill? It's like 6 different things. Don't worry about it. But something tested and ready to go for public consumption always kind of threw me off a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. I was kind of curious, Robert, about the beginning, about young Robert.
Yeah.
We like to hear about the early days.
How'd you grow up?
Yeah.
I grew up. I mean, I had a pretty good family situation. I think I grew up in East Bakersfield. Both my parents worked since I was young. My dad and mom, I think, had they're kind of just very different type of people, and it caused kind of a friction in their relationship. And my dad did drink when I was young, and actually for about 7 years of my childhood, he was in a program for drinking and was sober. And then him and my mom ended up splitting up and divorcing eventually and all that. And they moved to separate sides of town. So my mom lived on the west side. My dad still lived on the east side. I had all my friends that I grew up with on the east side that, I considered like my old friends or whatever. So by the time I was like 13, we were already like, smoking cigarettes and drinking. And my family all likes to drink at the holidays. And, growing up, there was a lot. My mom and dad both come from 7 brothers and sisters each. So there's quite a bit of family out there, cousins, aunts and uncles. And then there's a lot. It's funny because the way my family is, there's aunts and uncles and stuff that have like got divorced and remarried, but then everybody's still part of the family. Like,
Yeah.
So the family just expands exponentially. Like it's not like because they got divorced, everybody went away. No, it just now they got, multiple. I mean, even my parents still show up at the same holiday stuff sometimes and the same, So it's just that's kind of the example I was brought up with was like, just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean you got to be mean or whatever.
Family still family.
Yeah, family's still family. I mean, after my mom and dad were split up, like my mom's brother lived with my dad for a long time, and everybody was just still real close. So, but I started dabbling around with, smoking pot, drinking alcohol by like 12 or 13 years old, and cigarettes definitely then, and by the time I was 15, I started doing meth, and I would drink while I was tweaking a lot, but I never really got drunk then. It was kind of something that you just maintain.
Yeah.
But when I reached that stage, I was about 17, I guess, when I had that real bad panic attack thing. So I'd been doing meth and pretty hard. Like I went from being a big old guy, like about 300 pounds, down to like 120 pounds. I was just, and running amok 24/7. I mean, there was times where I stay up for like a month at a time, never even, maybe little cat naps here and there, but basically just going.
No time to eat.
Hit it hard. I never did anything in moderation. So when I was tweaking, I was going full bore for a couple years. And then that anxiety came in. It cut that pretty much out of my life. And alcohol, even way back then, started to serve that same purpose it did more recently, where that was the one thing out of everything, out of smoking pot or doing any kind of stimulants or any kind of thing, like I could drink and I wouldn't have any kind of panic attack.
Yeah.
And so that, I think that's my drinking really picked up at that point. That was kind of what I did for entertainment back then. And then, over the years, I did go to school. I quit going to school for about a year and a half during high school. And when I went back, I ended up going to continuation school. Then I had to spend an extra half a year. So they called me like a super senior. I went an extra half a year beyond my regular senior year, but I graduated. I went straight to BC. Took my time there, but over, like 5 years or so, I finally got out of BC.
You were trying to just gloss over that.
He
5 years at BC.
He likes to soak up that he gets all the information.
Yeah.
If it takes an extra year, it doesn't matter. He wants all the info.
I just kept changing my mind on what I wanted to do. At one point, I even got like an EMT certificate. I thought I might go that route. And then I went and did you do volunteer time during your certification process. And so I was on the ambulance and worked at the hospital. And I think it just sort of turned me off. Some of the things I experienced just in that short amount of time going out on my volunteer stuff. I saw like a 9-year-old girl passed away from grabbing an electric line out in the foothills.
Wow.
I saw a guy that got beat up. He was an old guy, probably like 70 something, out on South Union in a little motel. Somebody had called. We showed up and he was just all sliced up, bleeding, basically going to bleed out. On his bed, he was drunk, and somebody just broke a bottle and just decided to like beat him. We don't really know exactly how the confrontation happened, but he showed up and he was so drunk he just went and like laid down, and one of the neighbors in there called us. And I don't know, something about my sensitivities at that time or whatever. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. It just affected me. And then I also went to Hall Ambulance, and they were only hiring for like $9 an hour for EMTs at the time or something.
Oh man!
And I ended up getting a job. I worked at a school for special needs children, autistic children, and they paid like almost $10 an hour. And so I was like, well, why would I go get a job as an EMT where I don't even know if I'd like it? I can take this other job. So I did that.
So 5 years at the JC.
Yeah.
And then
slowly and then I transferred to Cal State. I started taking it seriously. By the time I was getting done at BC, I was ready to transfer to Cal State.
Oh.
I went to Cal State. I got a bachelor's degree in geology, and kind of right before I finished school there, I had got a tip from one of the professors about a job with an oil company. So I went to work with them, and that's pretty much where I spent,
That's where most, it's kind of off topic, but geologists, because I've met a few of them, and it's because they're in the oil industry, and is that really like the main job for that profession?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of different types of geologists in Bakersfield. Most people who are in Bakersfield doing geology are probably going to work for an oil company just because there's so many jobs in the oil business for geologists. But you could be like a civil geologist, a lot of geologists do like surveying for construction type stuff. Okay. They do surveying for like when they put in gas stations and stuff, they have to go in and test all the soils and things like that. You could do like hydro type geology. So in states like Washington and Oregon, where there's a lot of rainfall all the time and a lot of watersheds, that where how the water goes around, you have to have pretty like specialized hydrogeologists that can figure out how all that water's moving and who it belongs to and stuff. Cause you get a lot of people fighting about water rights and who's using all the water and what's happening. So and I'm sure there's somebody like that works for the county or something that does that for, that type of job. But like I say, in that role, there's only like one for the whole county, where in the oil business they have, we probably had, I don't know, 30 geologists or something at the company I worked with. And
wow, you can just go out and find 30 geologists like that.
Well, they come from all over the place.
Okay.
Locally, there was probably only 3 or 4 people that went to Cal State.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like anything, Cal State's not necessarily their pedigree school they're trying to hire from, you kind of have to.
You would think it would be, being that it isn't the epicenter of Kern County in the oil industry.
Yeah, well, and I think it is kind of starting to grow a little bit more of a reputation for being a decent school because of that, and just because the programs over the years have focused on petroleum geology and getting people prepared to go into the industry. And there's definitely some pretty well-known, in that world, in the petroleum geology world, there's some pretty well-known geologists now that did come from Cal State Bakersfield. So yeah, it's definitely not.
Not a bad I'm thing. Just curious about you being a geologist. Is it a difficult, did you find it difficult to do the education part of it?
No, and to be honest, that's probably one of the reasons I picked geology. Because, like I said,
you're making a bad name for all geologists. I want to apologize.
So
no, well, the curriculum does get a lot more difficult than like when I first started taking kind of intro to geology classes and some of the basic geology classes. It was like, man, this stuff it's almost like, like common sense or something. It feels that way, or it felt that way to me. But I've known other people, including like my wife and stuff, who when she took it, she was like, I hate this class, because she just couldn't understand things that to me seemed like it was easy, it made sense. And so I don't know, but as I went along, and I had to take like a couple calculus classes, a couple chemistry classes, some of the geology stuff itself, like mineralogy and petrology, these classes you take, the concepts start getting quite advanced and difficult. And at that point, I was a good student though, and I was pretty sharp. So it wasn't, I wasn't valedictorian by any means or anything, but I definitely, most of my classes I pulled off A's or B's.
Well, I'm making light of the fact that you went 5 years, but I didn't even finish a year at JC. I didn't even go to college. So
I was gonna ask about your, about your time there.
In case anybody wants to know, I do my job by trade, so kind of fell into it. But that's crazy, man. So at what point, getting back to alcohol? Sorry about that. When did you realize, or what age did you realize that you may have a problem, or have a problem with all or nothing type of? Because you said that you're you did everything, and
I would say, I pretty much knew well, like I said, my dad was in a program for alcohol as I was growing up, so I was already sort of exposed to some of that stuff. And so even probably like the very first time I drank, I knew I really liked it, but I also knew like, oh man, I better be careful with this, because, I knew that it could potentially cause issues. I just decided to start doing meth, and just didn't think that was, that was
that's quite a jump.
Going to be a problem, I guess.
Did you have people around you like doing a lot of meth? Was that something that you had seen a lot?
Not in my family life or anything. But this was in the mid 90s, early 90s, when, I don't know if you were all, you guys were all around Bakersfield and Kern County during those years, but meth was huge. It was like, it was kind of everywhere anyways.
Yeah.
And the very first time I did it, I was still going to West High. It was right after football season, my sophomore year of high school. And I didn't dress out for PE one day. I can't even remember why. I think I just didn't want to because I sweat real bad. And so I think my PE clothes were like super funky. And I was like, I'm just not even going to dress out today. I'm just going to tell them I don't have my clothes or whatever. And when we didn't dress out, they would have us like sit in the dugout or walk laps around the track or whatever. And I was in the dugout and some guy was there and he was like, hey, you want any of this? You know, and I hadn't done it before, but he's like, have you ever done it? And I was like, oh yeah, you know, because I just thought I don't know. I had to be cool, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he had it in a Almond Joy wrapper, like on the little tray that is inside there. He pulled it out and he had it lined up already. And I was like, heck yeah, you know, so I did it. And I mean, I was like, woo, on fire. So then
you snorted the meth.
Yeah.
The first time.
The first time, yeah.
Hey, you didn't even smoke it first.
No, I snorted it the first time. And then I snorted it probably the first like 10 times I did it.
Yeah.
Well, after that, because the football season was over and I kind of wanted to move back to the east side with my dad and transfer to Foothill because all my friends were over there and stuff. And that was potentially a mistake because at least at West, I had friends that like were kind of into stuff a little bit, but my east side friends were definitely more, you know, already like way more advanced as far as like smoking pot and drinking on the weekends and stuff like that. And
West High was also somewhat of the affluent crowd at the time, right?
At that time, it was still considered, a pretty like the kids from, you know, kind of the Stockdale area, or Stockdale Estates area or whatever. So the Southwest, whatever. It was kind of when Stockdale did open around those years, it became kind of the new rich school out there or whatever. But
I remember that because my sister did 1 year at West and then went to Stockdale, and then I had another sister who did all 4 years at West. So, but yeah, I when you said dugout, I just played in my mind, me going there as a kid because I was younger than them. Not much, but I am younger than them, and I would go on my bike. I would, because we lived right up the street from there. Well, not right up the street, but across the street off of Stockdale Highway, and I would always ride my bike from my house to there, and I would play in the dugouts, and I was probably, I wasn't in high school yet, but I was probably junior high, 6th grade. Something like that. So
at that time you didn't know that Robert was just there 10 minutes before.
You could have influenced
snorting
me,
meth
Robert.
right there.
Yeah, it was him doing it.
I was right during school hours and stuff. I think for the next couple periods I had after PE or something, I was all
it was on and cracking.
I was like, I could do this. I might do my homework for the first time in my life.
Right, ready to write an essay and everything.
Yeah, it was a wild day, and then I liked it, and so when I started talking to my friends from the east side and was talking about, transferring over to Foothill and stuff, and I asked some of my friends, like, hey, you guys ever done dope, and meth or whatever? And they're like, crank or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, yeah, but I didn't know you would be into that. And I was like, we got to get some, so next thing
so that
know,
was a sorry to interrupt you, that was a what do you call it? Like a deciding factor for you to go ahead and switch to Foothill?
No, I think it's just the timing just kind of fell into place like that. But it definitely,
helped out,
influenced my time at Foothill. I mean, it's basically as soon as I transferred over there, like within the first week of living with my dad, we were already getting some meth and doing that, and then I started meeting dealers and all the whole 9 yards, and that's when things really took off, was right after that. And I don't even remember much about going to Foothill. I mean, I kind of remember it, but I wasn't there that long before I just decided school wasn't for me anymore. I was just going to go. How'd
your dad and mom take that?
I mean, my mom's real like, I don't know what's right or wrong. My mom's kind of real like, you'll have to figure out your own path, I guess, or whatever. it got a little bit different when I kind of got screwed up and let people in, you know, because you go through those kind of dark periods and I kind of told on myself because I was like, I need help or whatever. And then like a week later, I'm like, why did I tell my mom that I was all screwed up on drugs, you know, because I didn't, you know, I wanted to go back out and
you didn't want to stop doing the drugs.
Do my thing. But I had my moments of weakness in there, whatever. But then, you know, my mom started putting her foot down about taking advantage of her. And like, you know, it was like, if I wasn't going to do what I needed to do, go to school and do things right or whatever, then I wasn't welcome to stay with her and stuff like that. My dad, he was really, I think he just kind of threw his hands up, didn't really know what to do. I mean, I don't know. It seemed like nobody really got onto me too harshly about it, but I also kind of just like took off too. It wasn't like I was trying to like live at home and do drugs or whatever. I was like off and running. Like I stayed at crazy tweaker houses, and I was just off doing my own thing. So I didn't really give them much of an option in some ways, because they just didn't even know where I was, you know?
Yeah. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I know you ended up starting like a family and everything like that. How old were you when you did that? Were you still like in the midst of your addiction when you met the wife and all of that? And
well, so I've been married twice, and actually, even when I first started going to BC, I started dating one of my friend's sisters, and we dated for like almost 6 years or something. And she had kids already. But we didn't have any kids together, and she was a little older than I was. And, that was almost like a marriage. I mean, we lived together in Oildale, and I worked like for my dad. And those were the years when I was like at BC trying to just figure out what I was going to do with myself, what exactly I wanted to major in. And I'd go and take more like certificate kind of classes to just try to get into a role. Like I say, I got that EMT thing and stuff.
Right. Get a job quick.
Yeah. Try to find something quick. And then, her and I eventually, we went through a lot of different breakups back together kind of stuff over time. And then we were finally really done. And then I was going to BC getting finished up, and, things were, going good. And then I met my first wife, and we dated for about a year and got married. And I have a son from her that he was born in 2005. And right after he was born, well, and we had kind of a rocky marriage too, but, I don't even know exactly what all happened. I mean, that'd be a whole nother podcast, but we ended up split up when he was like a baby basically. And we tried to work things out and whatever for a little while, but it just wasn't meant to happen, I guess. So we ended up split up, and then, I went to Cal State and, started working for the company I worked with. And then about the time my son was about 2 years old, I met my current wife, which we're separated currently. But, so that was like 15 years ago now. And, so she and my current wife had 2 kids of her own.
Yeah.
And it's funny because our kids are all like a year apart. So the oldest at the time was, my stepdaughter. She was 4. And then my stepson was 3 and my son was 2 when we started dating. And now, now my son's 17 and my stepdaughter's will be 20 in May. So, that's definitely been the most significant relationship of my.
Were you using with like when you were with them, were they kind of doing the same thing as you, or were you using and they were sober? Or?
My first wife, before we got married, we drank a little bit and we'd go out like karaoke and stuff like that.
So just social drinking.
Kind of. I would still get pretty drunk, but I don't know. But after we got married, she was, I think, to be honest, part of the reason I think I chose to be with my first wife was because she really didn't have like a history like some of my ex-girlfriend before that was into drugs like I was, drank like I did, you know, whatever. And then my first wife, she was like real straight, went to church and was like, you know, just a good person. And I thought, see, that's way better for me. And I was, you know, I was very attracted to her when I met her and everything. And so I'm like, this will be good for me, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know, once we were married, it just came along with a bunch of other expectations and things that I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can live
What did I get myself into?
live up to all this, you know? But I didn't drink a lot when I was married to her. We were married for about 5 years or something. And, well, by the time our divorce was actually final, I think we split up after about 3.5 years or something. And then like there was that little period where we were kind of trying to work on it, but we weren't living together, you know, and then eventually, you know, the year it takes or whatever for your divorce to become final. But I drank occasionally. And when I was married to her, my first wife, I would go like on camping trips with my buddies and drink like crazy, you know, have these crazy weekend warrior kind of things. And then during the weeks I would just be normal. But I did get a DUI when we were dating. And so I had lost my license for like a year. And it was crazy because I was like still going to school. And you remember those little gas scooters that got real popular for a little while? I rode one of those. I rode them all around town. It was crazy. I'd ride. I mean, it was basically like my car. I did.
He was like, "There's nowhere I won't go on this thing."
Oh, I was literally, I was working at that school. It was over on Ming Avenue that I told you guys I worked at with special needs kids. And then I was going to school at BC still. And I would ride that little scooter like all the way. And then we lived off of South H out by where the old Walmart used to be out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I would ride that thing all the way from like my apartment all the way out to like.
Is that what you got a DUI on?
No.
Oh, man, that would have been classic.
No.
Yeah.
Gas was cheap, and I bet that thing got some good mileage on it, right?
Yeah. I'd only have to put like a couple bucks in it and drive all around town for the few days. I mean, I rode the bus a lot too. But I would actually ride. I had like a kind of I buy my monthly passes for the Get Bus.
Right.
And I had like a thing going because it was before they had like the bike racks on the buses and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I would just tell them like, hey, I'm going to bring my little scooter on the bus, you know, and they're like, that's fine. And so I would ride my scooter to the bus stops. And
Yeah.
You never know when you're going to be out late and the bus has stopped running. You got to have that scooter still.
Yeah, the bus, man. I remember when they put that rack on there on that front end of that thing, and man, it was like godsend. It was like, what? We could take our bikes now, you know? Because
so that thing wasn't always on there.
No, there was a time when it wasn't there.
No, yeah, we used to go. I used to ride that thing all the time, the Get Bus. Yeah, we used to go to the mall, just get dropped off there, and then make our way back, and then you know whatever.
We just ride the bike for the whole trip, man, or skate the whole way. Should have been getting on the bus.
Well, when they had that like Crosstown Express bus or whatever that would go from like BC to downtown to Valley Plaza, like that was super convenient because you could ride your bike to one and then you'd make it across town in like a half hour or whatever instead of having to take like 2 hours to drive across town on your bike.
That's true.
So it became really convenient, especially when I was going to school and I had to I got off work at 3:00 and had to be in class by 4:30 or something. I had to hit the bus real quick and.
So. Yeah, and if you missed, it was another half hour.
Yeah. Well, if I missed, I was screwed, but I did pretty good. I don't know. It was against a lot of odds. Like, and even the people I would hang out with on the weekends during those years when I was going to BC and stuff, I don't think anybody, when people finally found out that I had like graduated from Cal State, even especially, they were like, "What? Like I didn't even like you're the same Rob that was here on like New Year's or whatever."
Same guy.
So you guys sleeping on my couch for?
Oh yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was. I kind of lived a very dual life like that because when I was at school, I was good, you know.
No drinking at school. No taking shot bottles like in the middle of class or anything like that. The little singles or sneaking out to the bathroom, smoking a little.
Not so much during my years at BC. Like I say, mostly because Well, I don't know. For a lot of the years, I guess I was still with my ex-girlfriend, and I don't know why. I just didn't. I guess I knew I wouldn't do well in school if I tried to pull that kind of stuff. So I kind of kept it at bay. But by the time I was at Cal State, so geology kind of has a reputation for, like, when you do a lot of camping and like outings in geology, and geologists like to drink, like a lot of them do. So when we were out on those trips, it's not, abnormal for be out in the field all day and then go back to the campsite and, everybody just drink a ton in the evenings and stuff. And so I started drinking a lot, like, during those types of things. And I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a pub on campus at Cal State.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, like, when we'd be doing like a little study group or
it was always out there.
Yeah, we'd always go over there and drink during that. And, I would drink enough to, like, kind of get a little tipsy and then hurry up, finish studying. And then once I had a buzz like that, I was always going to pretty much finish it. So a lot of times, I guess that's why I avoided during school and stuff, avoided drinking too much. Cause once I got started, I get on a roll. And if I kind of like watch the time, then like, okay, how much longer do I have to be here before I can go some environment where I can go cut loose and finish the job.
What are some of your triggers, and what do you use to get out of them? Because I'm sure, like me, it happens to me when I'm on my way home and I'm tired after a long day at work, and then that's when I get them, and I have to snap myself out of it, and I play the tape back, remember how I felt the day that the day or the days leading up to quitting, to not wanting to drink anymore, and then also how I feel, in that moment, how I recognize how I woke up, how it felt good, to be present, how it felt good not to worry about a cop getting behind me, or I try to remember that in those instances when that does happen, so that way it snaps me right back out of it.
I'd say that probably my two main triggers, historically, I would call it, more than anything. Right now, my only kind of trigger is, like you're saying, when I drive by, like, the liquor store that I used to stop at all the time, or even if I'm in the grocery store and I walk by the alcohol aisle kind of thing, there'll be a moment where I feel like, like, dang, man, that sounds good. Like, but same thing like you're saying, then I'm like, does it though? And then I think about it for a minute and I'm like, no, I'm too good now, especially because in the past it would have been more difficult for me to deal with those types of kind of triggers because I hadn't got bad enough yet. But this time around, I basically lost everything. Like, and I can directly kind of relate it to my drinking getting really bad again, and just me kind of throwing in the towel with thinking I could even deal with it anymore. I just kind of surrendered and was like, I'm going to probably just drink forever. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get sober. But now that I've been able to achieve sobriety this time, it's almost more valuable to me than it ever has been in the past, because I'm so much healthier right now than I was even 6 months ago. When I was still in it, I was so, like, hopeless and kind of whatever. And because I had kind of lost pretty much everything, it's not real hard for me to want to avoid it. But what I do worry about is, because historically I felt pretty bad before, and it wasn't that hard for me not to drink when I was going through, like, the consequences of some situation, or
when your back's up against the wall.
Yeah. I mean, I'd at least find a way to push it off and compartmentalize it or something, not let it get crazy while I was trying to, like, get out of whatever hole I had dug myself.
Yeah.
But once I'm back on top, like right now, like once I get back to work and I'm back, like, life's good again, and whatever ends up happening between, my wife and I gets sorted out and becomes a part of life, I worry that I'll get back to that place where I'm feeling good enough again, and I'll be like, oh,
you'll forget.
I can drink, and especially like people talk about it a lot, like the reward type situation, where it's like you kind of start feeling like you deserve it or you're entitled to it. And I don't know why we would feel entitled to want to like destroy our lives, because that's really what I mean. Your brain tells you I'm entitled to the good feelings and doing what I want and whatever. But the reality is, if you're honest with yourself, you're basically telling yourself you're entitled to destroy yourself, because that's what it does to me. I mean,
that's what clarity will do for you. It'll show you like what's really going to happen if you get back to doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea, even in the last 10 years of my life, really why I would want to drink alcohol, because it quit working a long time ago.
Yeah.
It works very temporarily, and it's very fleeting. Once in a great while, I'd actually have a kind of a good time, and it kind of, and like I said, it was for anxiety and stuff. There'd be a period in there after, the first 4 or 5 drinks or whatever, where the relief would hit me. But then because I carry that kind of like the allergy that they, kind of talk about, I could never stop after that. So I'd always way overdo anything that was like really therapeutic in any way. I was off and running every time I got started. And so it really doesn't make any sense for me, over the last, like at least the last 10 years, why I would want to drink, because it would always turn bad quick. It never was fun for very long at all. And then I was always just back in this dark, struggling turmoil of a place, have a few good days here and there where I wasn't drinking or something. And then my mind would tell me, oh, I feel pretty good now. I deserve a drink again or whatever. And I'd start again, and it wouldn't, a couple days into my drinking, I'd be like, why am I doing this? I'm not really enjoying it at all. I feel like, I'm trapped.
Yeah. What you just described is the same feeling, same everything. I resonate with that. It resonates with me, that feeling of just, why am I doing this? While I'm drinking, why am I, you idiot, and then at that point I can't put it down because my body's addicted to it. And it's just, it's a deep hole. You're constantly chasing the bottom of a bottle. It's never enough. It's always more. It's crazy, that we allowed, that was one of the things that really got me was also the fact that you learned that you allowed something to control your life. That how could I allow anything? I wouldn't let you tell me what to do.
Right.
And yet I'm allowing the substance and this way of thinking control me, and it becomes to where it's like you've dug yourself so deep that it's so hard to get out of, it's a horrible feeling.
It helps me hearing you guys, Sam, Rob, like that have relapsed before and had to start over and know what it's like as someone who, this is my first time trying to stop, and I feel good about it. And I think I've mentioned it before. My biggest fear is doing too well, getting everything going back perfect and being like, oh, see, we're good to go. Now I can go ahead and get to drinking again, and hearing your guys' stories about it never gets better the second time around. I've never heard anybody say it got better the second time around. Worse. And then the third time around, people start talking about, I don't know if I'll make it back from this time. It starts getting that bad, So it's always huge hearing stuff like that for my sobriety. You know what I mean? That it's scary.
I can vouch for that. The fact that it always got worse. And like you just mentioned, I don't know if I have it in. If I were to, get really off the rails again like I did this last time, I don't know if I have another round of getting sober in me. Like, I was just in such a dark place last time, and knowing how, just the stuff that goes through your mind about how worthless you are and how things are just like, it's not even, worth trying anymore because you just keep failing yourself and you always find yourself back in the same place and all that stuff. I think, to some degree, I think that for me, especially being exposed to 12-step programs and stuff throughout my life, like I had a lot of the information and I tried a few times, over the years to quit everything altogether just on my own, thinking I don't need to go to a program or whatever to do it. But, my mind would, one day I'd be in that mode and then all of a sudden my mind would just switch. Like, you know what, that's just stupid. I'm overreacting. I'm overthinking it or whatever. I can do it again. And then when you're back in that place again, you're like, why did, I should have known. I used to carry a little thing I wrote to myself in my wallet. The bottle, stupid. Well, it was basically like, all the stuff you tell yourself, like it's going to have fun, but then, like, cause I was a pretty big blackout drinker too. So I'd say at least 50% of the time I drank, I would drink to a point where I was blacked out, at least for a period of time, And, so I wrote, like, you think it's fun, but you don't even remember it kind of thing. And what's fun about that? And then, just all this stuff that I wrote, but until I was ready, completely ready, and I hope I am this time and I hope I stay, in that kind of place. But I'd had all the knowledge and all the kind of past experiences and whatever, but I'd sit there and like read that note, fold it up and go to the store and buy booze anyways. Yeah. Like it doesn't make any rational sense. Right. Like, I just wasn't ready to quit until I lost everything. I don't know, until it got that bad, and I'm still in that phase where like, I don't romanticize drinking right now. I don't like think, maybe I could have a little bit of fun or just do it a little, but I do fear the day that comes back into my world because my past experiences, I've gone time where I was, like I am right now, where I was happy about being sober. I didn't want it at all. Didn't romanticize it or think about it. And then one day it just started coming back to me where it was like, well, maybe I could just have just like a 3-pack of Tall Boys or whatever. Yeah. I'm not going to get all crazy. Yeah. But every time I've ever done that, as soon as that 3-pack's down, I'm like,
to be honest, 3-pack wouldn't be bad for you.
It wouldn't, but it never
just stops
if
there.
We could just have that 3-pack and that was it.
Yeah. And what happens too, if I do a night where I just do like 3-pack, then I'm building these successes. It's like, I do it. I can get away with it,
I could probably take a 3-pack and a shot because the 3-pack went well. So a shot's not too much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens to me is when I start stepping back into drinking from a phase of not drinking, it's never like the very first time I just run out and buy 2 cases and pound them because I wouldn't even probably be able to process that kind of alcohol right away. But it starts with like a 3-pack. And then that first night I'm like, see, I'm good. I don't need more than that. I got a nice little friendly buzz and I'm happy and whatever. But then I want it the next day and I get another 3-pack and it doesn't quite get me that same place. So then, like you say, I add a shot or something. And then within a week, I'm already...
I've got the fifth.
You up a creek.
I've got the case. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, it's crazy how fast it can progress to... I still tell myself
as you could do it again, it gets faster every time.
Well, yeah, because that's what I mean. I used to, my wife, she'd kind of tolerate my drinking. Actually, my current wife, over the years, as long as it wasn't like an everyday thing or even like an every weekend thing. So I would tell her, well, I'll just drink like once a month or something. One weekend a month I'll drink or whatever. And she's like, if you could do that's fine, I guess, but. It would start out that way, and then pretty soon I'd be like 2 weekends out of the month, and then 3 weekends, and then then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because I'd make it Monday and Tuesday pretty good, but then by Wednesday I'm already starting to get the itch, like sort of the pregame for Friday night or something, but it'd start hitting me on Wednesday, and I'd be like, well, I at least need a 3-pack tonight. Then I'd drink a 3-pack, be back at the store buying a 12-pack. Then I'd be hungover Thursday and Friday at work. It was just chaos.
Did that ever lead you into those alcoholic narcotic like tendencies that we have, to where you're drinking before you come in the house, or you're drinking when she leaves to do something. So
now you're hiding it.
Now you're hiding it.
Oh yeah, I did that quite a bit, especially as, like I said, I'd have sort of an arrangement with her, like I'll only drink once a month or something. So then it was like, oh shit, I drank last weekend, so I'm not supposed to drink this weekend.
Right.
So I'll just grab a 3-pack after, whatever, after work, or just in the afternoon or something. And I drink it in the car on the way home, and then put it in a brown bag and put it, go dump it in the trash as I'm coming in the house. And a lot of times actually, she wouldn't really notice, but then there'd be a couple times where she's like, are you drinking? And I'm like, oh. Sometimes I'd like, well, I did have one beer, and she's like, yeah, right. Yeah, in her mind, she's like, yeah, like, you tell me you had one beer, you probably already had a 12-pack or something. But
yeah,
I did, and I did a lot of, because I didn't drink and drive. I had 2 DUIs when I was younger, and after that, I didn't really drink and drive. I may have drank and drive like 5 times in the last 10 years or whatever, and always. It was almost as bad when I would do that and know like that I did that. It would be like almost as bad as if I got another DUI or I really hit another rock bottom. I would beat myself up bad. Like, I don't do that. Like, I never do that. I always just had my wife take me back to the store. And like this last year or so, she started getting to where, like, when we'd go to the store and I'd grab a 12-pack, she's like, you might as well just get like,
just get the
couple cases or whatever. Yeah. Like, get enough, because I don't want to have to bring you back to the store later. And I'd always like, oh, tonight I'm only going to drink a 12-pack.
Why do we do that? Right?
And then a few hours later, I'm like, hey, I hate to do this, but can you give me another ride to the store? And she'd be eventually started putting her foot down. She's like, no, you can walk to the store if you need it that bad and stuff. And my insane, I'm like, all right, I guess I'm walking to the store.
Yeah.
That's not enough for you to say, okay, I'll wait till tomorrow.
No,
that means I'm going to put my shoes on.
I was kind of happy when my stepdaughter started driving, because I was like, oh, I'll have Kylie take me. I pay for her gas and stuff, so she can't say no.
Yeah, she can take it.
So she'd be like, well, if you can get her to take you, whatever. But I'm not taking you.
So what do you think you can do different, or that you are doing now? I think I know what you're going to tell me, but that's going to help you stay in the headspace that you are now, and that, because there will come a time, same thing with me. I think about that quite a bit. What happens when? It's kind of why I started the podcast. Is part of it, is because now I'm in it every day. Now I'm thinking about it all the time, and in this was in that sense it helps me. Because I'm so fearful of that, because I've quit too. I've been hospitalized. I've had pancreatitis. I've been in ICU. I've had hospital stays, and it's just like, what am I doing to myself? And I don't want to get to that point again. And for me, and maybe the same for you, it is that it's showing up to meetings, it's participating in friendships, that we get, and keeping those friendships, nourishing them, and making sure to stay involved in, with other people that are in recovery.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I know when I was active before in the program, and everybody's always talking about, get a sponsor and work the steps and whatever. And I did that the first round that I was in, but even just doing the minimum, like I've heard other people talk about, just staying involved, showing up to meetings, even if you're not doing all that stuff and perfect or whatever, because I don't put as much pressure on myself this time around as I did last time. And I don't know if it's just because of the way my experience before ended up turning out. I don't know, but
you kind of jaded.
Well, because the last time I was in, I had a sponsor for about a year, and we were working through the steps and everything, and then he ended up going out, and then I was close to another guy, and I asked him, but he was like, I can't. And so after that, I still was going to meetings for like another year, you know, and I was still really involved. I was doing a lot of commitments, secretarying meetings, and you know, making coffee and doing just all kinds of stuff. And just being involved kept me sober. Like I was happy and sober. Life was good. And I always felt like, you know, that eventually I'll find the right person. I'll start working through the steps again and get it all done. But then I got back to working a lot of hours at work, and life got really busy again. And I made a pretty good amount of money when I was working for the oil companies and stuff, you know? And so once I was kind of back in that arena, I guess I started falling away from meetings. I'd go once in a great while, and I stayed sober, like I said, like another year, really not even going to meetings anymore, but just knowing like, I don't drink. And then one day it just came up. I was like, you know what? I want to drink. I'm not going to get all crazy again and whatever. But because of that experience, I can say for sure that I know I need to stay involved. And, you know, this program that we all came from, I'm so grateful for the fact that once we completed it, we can still show up and all that.
Man, that's huge.
Because that's going to be a big part. I know that's going to be a big part of my life from here on out. Like, I know there's probably people that go there and they say they're going to keep coming in and whatever. I mean, we've already started. Now it's, you know, you already start to recognize it. You've been there twice as long as I have now, and you've probably seen it more than I have.
I've seen people come back already.
But then there's people like you know, who inspire me. Like, you still come all the time, even though, like I say, you've been there twice as long as I have or more or whatever, and you're still showing up. And I'm like, see, Sam still shows up all the time.
That's right.
Loretta still shows up. You know,
Yeah.
That's right.
Sorry.
We'll blip it out.
But there's just people who keep coming, and I'm like, see, I want to be one of those people now. I'm gonna be one of those people now. You know, life's kind of chaos for me and stuff right now. Like when I crashed my car a while back, and then I had to get my truck going, and then I got that, and now I jacked that up. Like, I'm like, what? Why is this stuff happening to me? I noticed this though before when I got sober. I start getting real absent-minded, and I think something like that came up when we were in group the other night about just being like distracted and stuff. Because I've been noticing that, like, I don't, like when I hit a median in my truck, the little curb in the middle of the road, you know, I was just driving in the rain on New Year's Eve, and I don't even know where my headspace was. All of a sudden, I'm just cruising and just like boom, and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking
What
or
was
doing?
I thinking about?
Like, I don't have any idea. I just hit this thing out of the blue, and I'm like, I tried to think, like, was I?
And this is New Year's Eve, right?
Yeah.
You're lucky they didn't think that you were drunk.
I know.
There,
I know, because I'm like, bam, and I went over the curb, then I had to like run it back over, and I'm like, I'll probably get pulled over.
Right. I'm probably getting pulled over for this one.
But I was only like one turn thing away from where I was turning into the parking lot, and you know, by the time, I mean, I still had enough air in my tires to get in there and get parked, and then they went flat. So.
Yeah, that's horrible.
That is bad. I don't know why I'm laughing.
No, I mean, and the thing is, if that would have happened to me, even on a day when I would have been sober, you know, more than 6 months ago before I started this, that I would have got all buggered up, because I couldn't. When we were talking about the other night about, you know, problem solving and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I was like, I couldn't handle anything for like the last 2 years. Like, if it was something came up, I was just, because of my anxiety levels and everything, I would have just been like, I would have probably just not even dealt with it.
Yeah. You know, you bring up something that, or remind me of something that, you know, I'm thinking 6 years down the road, 10 years down the road in the future. You know, you can't, eventually life is going to come, right? And things are going to happen. People are going to move on. People are going to, there's some people that'll be okay and never have to go to another meeting. I don't think that's the case, but it's possible, right? So and then as we do now, because you say I go all the time, and I do, but I also have the option not to go. And so there are times where I haven't been. But as we go through that, and in the future, that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that part of me, like, I can't, like, right now, my wife, sometimes she'll say, just go through check-ins and then come home. Or, you gonna go tonight? You know, and I can tell in her voice, she's not telling me anything, but I can tell, you know, that, you know, she wants me to stay home. You know, well, you're not going to see the kids. And I get that, you know, I've got to be available. And what I've been telling myself and the way I look at it is I want to give them quality of time, not quantity. I want to be present for them. I want to be available to them when I am around them. But at the same time, you know, eventually, I think just organically, it's going to get easier, or it's going to get, it'll become routine. It'll be like second nature, you know. And so we're not going to have that same fervor or, you know, passion to be at a meeting, to be in recovery. And obviously it can't take over your life. I can't go every day. You know, I can't go, I got to be home you know, sometimes I have kids, I got young kids and a wife, and they want me around. And it's just like, you know, what happens, you know, when I get comfortable, that's what I'm afraid of, is when I get comfortable and I don't, man, you know, I want to be able to, because right now I also say, be in recovery, being sober, do it with intent. Like, I'm sober. I'm gonna stay sober. It's on the top of my mind. Well, now as we get more and more time, it's gonna be not that forefront thing. You know, there's other things that are gonna be going on.
Right.
And so I just, you know, I just don't know how that's going to play out, and I'm afraid of it.
I think you're doing a good job, like doing things like you said, like you started doing this podcast for that reason, like because it's something that you're going to do a couple days a week that'll keep your sobriety on the forefront of your mind.
Right.
And then even if you're not going, you know, to group 2-3 times, say you're going once a week, well, then that's still 3 days where you're doing something that's focused primarily on your sobriety. So that'll keep your mind there. I understand the fear of that, you know, I definitely do, but I feel like you have a game plan, you know, I feel like you notice it, you're mindful of it. And when we're mindful of things, we can actually make plans to keep us from falling into those little traps, you know? So, I think you're gonna be all right. Plus you got guys like Rob, you got guys like me. We'll blow up your phone if we don't see you. Yeah, you'll know what's going on. We don't get a response in the men's group chat. We'll know what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, I feel where you're coming from, because right now, just because of the circumstances of my situation in life, you know, I feel like I do have a lot of time to go, and that was kind of my experience the first time around too, because I actually was laid off for a while that time. And went back to work after about a year, and was still going and everything. But as work picked up and I got more busy with that, you know, it just started to take, you know, priorities just start switching around. And I'm genuinely fearful, like you described, for life to get, even though right now I have the time to dedicate to showing up to meetings pretty much any time. I mean, unless my car is broken or something like that. And, you know, and even with that, I know if I were, you know, just more outgoing or whatever, I'd call one of the guys on the list and say, hey, you going? Come get me. My car's screwed up. You know, I know I need to go. I still have a tendency not to necessarily do that. And, you know, I don't know. I'll probably overcome that at some point if needed. But when I do get a job again, if it's anything like my old job, I was on call 11 days in a row and I had 3 days off. Those are the only 3 days I worked an 11 and 3 schedule, and those were the only 3 days that I knew that I could be available. Any other time, I could be out of drilling rig for a couple days or whatever, you know. And that's kind of what happened. I started getting real busy at work. I was always out on jobs, and it just seemed like almost like Murphy's Law. Like if I want to go to this meeting tonight really bad, and then boom, I'd get called out to the field and I'd miss that meeting. And then there'd be like 3 days where there's not a group that I really like to go to, whatever. I could hit a meeting, but I'll wait because the meeting I like's Friday or whatever.
Yeah.
And then nothing would happen those 3 days. I could have gone to anything I wanted, but then the one meeting I want, now all the jobs are coming in and I got to be out at work. So I honestly felt like sometimes like, God or whatever's like working against me. And it's like the way that things would always work out.
Yeah.
It seemed like I just couldn't make it to the things I needed to get to and whatever because of the nature of work. And I thought I'll be all right. But like you said, I got into a routine where I was making money again. Life was comfortable again. I didn't have any of those fears about anything. And I didn't even think I would start drinking. That's what's crazy about it. When I kind of got out of this routine that we're in right now, that last time, it took like a whole year before it caught up to me. And the way it caught up to me was like they talk about, I can't remember, somewhere in the big book or whatever, it talks about, that if you're like not spiritually fit, then the day will come.
Yeah.
Whatever.
If you're not working on your recovery,
working on that relapse.
You're working on a relapse sort of thing.
Sort of along those lines, but it's basically like if everything would have stayed fine, but we all know that it's not going to stay fine, but in my mind it was like I'm good, so I don't need anything. But the stuff that if I was still working a good program or whatever, I would have seen stuff that was started to bother me at work and stuff and been like, it is what it is. And I would have been more easygoing with taking care of the situation and just doing what I needed to do. Instead, I wanted things to go a certain way, and I started like trying to force things to go one way. And when they weren't,
you were staying in your box,
messed up. Yeah.
In your square.
And like I said, I got all wigged out and got to the point where I was having anxiety bad and panic attacks and all kinds of stuff because I could see the world around me coming down. And instead of being in a place where I could be like, okay, higher power, this is whatever's going on, it's what you apparently want or whatever, and being kind of accepting of it, I was trying everything in my power to try to like fix it. And it was just, but being able to see how it wasn't going to go my way. And I let everything get out of control. And then eventually, I wouldn't even have thought like that's what made me pick up a drink, but I just,
it was a culmination.
I just got to that point where I was like, a drink sounds good, whatever that is. Because I got so far away from the program and so buggered up by just life's stuff that a drink sounded good, and I picked it back up, and it was good the first time,
Yeah. So how we talk about all the time how we have to accept the things that we cannot change. But also what tends to happen too is we don't protect our side of the street. It's one thing for us to keep it clean, right? Or stay in our square, whatever you want to call it. But also for me, at least, if I don't protect that square, if I don't say, hey, no, this is my boundary. So accepting that I can't change it, but also and knowing that, doing the things that I need to do to make sure that I change the things that I can, one, and then two, leave it up to my God, but at the same time, I mean, that a lot of times that's not just, I don't want what what I hear sometimes is that people are like, oh, that's just the way it is. It's and I think that we need to be, in order to do that, it takes action. It's not just sitting back and letting things hit you either. Not being a punching bag for life.
Right. Well, it's kind of like, I think it might've been you that was talking about like Jesus, or maybe Joe said something about it or something. Anyways, like Jesus take the wheel thing, but it's not literally like, oh,
No.
Yeah. I think it was him.
Cause I think, I think a lot about that. Cause when I've had a history of like, I turn stuff over, but then I can get to where I think that means that, I don't have to like make a lot of effort, God's just going to take care of it or whatever. But it really does come down to what you're saying. Like the serenity prayers is pretty key. It's like, it doesn't mean because I'm turning stuff over to my higher power or doing my higher power's will, it doesn't mean that I don't have to take any action. Like it's all just going to be done for me, which is, I think, what, some a kind of a bad habit you can fall into.
Right.
And it kind of comes out with the same results because, you're probably going to get disappointed because in the back of your mind, it gets attached to like expectations. Like, you think your higher power is just going to get you out of this bad situation without you having to do anything. And when it doesn't, then your expectations get in there and tell you, well, God doesn't even care. Doesn't work anyways. Or whatever.
That's where your discernment comes in, I think, because it's situation based. You know what I mean? That's why it's to accept the things we cannot change and to know the difference.
Right.
Because the things that we cannot are the things that we do have to let go of. Some things don't need action. If there's nothing I can do to change the outcome of something, action is wasted, and that action will turn into me having expectations of it doing something and then me being let down when it doesn't. Now, knowing the things that I can change are the ones where I do need to take action. Right. I do need to be forward about this. I do need to make moves to get the result that I'm looking for. So, like you were saying, the serenity prayer is exactly right there. Some things I hand over and I let them go. Some things I take the wheel on. Some things are right in the middle where I take the wheel with his guidance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I even think when there's like something that I know, like when I think about the serenity prayer and I think, well, in this situation, it's something that I can change, you know, so I need to take the action, but you still got to kind of let go of the outcomes. Cause if you start to take the action only because you have this expectation for how it's going to turn out, that's another setup sometimes. Cause then you take these certain actions and then it doesn't go your way. You know, that's where the whole acceptance of life on life's terms kind of thing comes.
Accept the things you cannot change. Yeah. I think the expectation is where we set ourselves up to fail.
Expectation's rough.
Yeah.
It is. It really is.
Expectation. Yeah.
I guess, I think it's sort of healthy to have an expectation to not be, sick and not be miserable and, to have sort of serenity,
have a good life
and feel good, be in a positive place. I think that kind of expectation is positive. It's something
healthy.
Good because I've been at a point not too long ago where I even lost those. I really just was that like dark about life. Like I just didn't think that I really would ever get healthy and happy again. I didn't have any expectation of it. If anything, I felt pretty bad about myself and felt like, all those things that I had been telling myself about myself were true about what a worthless dad and husband and employee and friend and everything I am. The world would just sort of be better off without me. I kind of got to that place and I don't want to get back to that place. So, and I do think it's reasonable for me to have an expectation of serenity and happy, being able to feel good. But it's kind of just the trick of the higher power in your life. like when you quit trying to be in control of everything and have your expectations, you know, too specific. Like I want this exact thing to happen and it's going to go this way and whatever. When you can say, you know what, it's out of my hands, and you can accept whatever way it's going to go is how it's supposed to go or whatever.
It's like wishing on a wishing well.
Then,
well, you know, it depends on your higher power, because some higher powers like mine, there's promises that were made.
Yeah.
So the faith that I have in my higher power, I can have the expectations that the promises he's made to me will be kept.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like Robert was saying, the specific expectations about certain things, like I'm going to get this and it's going to be exactly like this, exactly on this date, and exactly how I'm imagining it. That could be a setup.
Yeah.
That could be a setup.
Sure.
Yeah.
well, even just getting into like my head about like what I deserve and what I'm entitled to.
Yeah.
Like you guys talked about, I do have a degree. So some part of my brain wants to tell me, you know, I can't go get just like a minimum wage.
Nobody forgot that, right, Robert? Robert does have a degree.
You know? He's a geologist.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't, but those are parts of my head that like, I don't know what God's plan is for my life or whatever. And I don't have really any right necessarily to expect this, even the life that I had in the past where I made X amount of money and I was very comfortable and I was able to buy a house and I was able to have all the fun stuff that we wanted to have for many years. And, you know, if that's not in the cards anymore for me, then that's okay. But that's still a struggle for me when it comes to checking my expectations, when I'm looking for a job and the only things I can come across are making like $20 or $30 an hour. For me, that still feels like, well, that's not going to be enough. Like that's not going to cut it. I need more than that just to be back to that comfort zone that I used to live in. I don't know why I think I have that, you know, right or whatever, but it still hits me. And it's something that I'm working on because I have applied for a handful of jobs over the last, you know, year or so that were lower than my expectations, and those still didn't even come through. So then I'm like, man,
Nobody wanted
me. Really, yeah. I'm striking out here, and you know. What it does to me is it just kind of keeps me humble like that. Well, I guess, you know, the right thing will come along when it comes along. And where I feel like I have to stay responsible is putting in the effort, keeping my eyes open. And
keeping your side of the street clean.
Yeah. And well, and as far as finding work and stuff, you know, being reasonable. I can't just force the world to create exactly the situation I want or whatever. That's because I do get frustrated because there's not a lot of work related to what I used to do that's just out there where I'm like, oh, there's the right job for me. Yeah. So I have to, everything I tried, even all the stuff I've applied for, it's kind of going down a little bit of a different route than than what I was used to. And so, you know, I don't know what life has for me coming up, but, whatever it is, you know, I am kind of grateful for this time to be laying down the groundwork with getting involved in these programs and stuff and building that group of friends in that time. So like you said earlier, like it just kind of becomes routine. I don't want it to get to a place where like, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever had a gym membership, but like the first like month or two you have it, you're like hitting it all the time, you're like, all hard. And then it's
like a brand new girlfriend.
It only takes that one time.
Brand new relationship.
Yeah, it only takes that one time when you're like, you know what? I'm kind of had a long day. I'm just going to take one day off, but I'm going back tomorrow.
Yeah. And now it's been a month.
Yeah, well, the first time you take one day off, and you're like, that was kind of nice. And then you may take one more, but then you're like, I got to get back on it. And then you do that. But, you know, I don't know many people who...
He's preaching to the choir right now.
Six months into a gym membership, you may go once every blue moon, if that. And eventually, like with us, we'd go just to go swimming or something.
Yeah, go on the massage chair,
go in the hot tub, and have the kids go to the babysitter for a couple hours while we just hang out.
Yeah, I had that happen to me a few years ago. I was going downtown to a gym, and it got to a point where I was going every day, and then 5 days a week or whatever, and then I would go 4 days, and then I go 3 days, and then I would I would walk in, go to the bathroom, and walk back out. And then I would go to the gym, sit in the parking lot, and then say, I'm just going to go home. So it just, this was it was tough. But yeah, that's a perfect example.
Well, and that's kind of what happens with all these meetings and stuff, especially if you don't make sure and get involved with accountability, like have friends that are going to actually check in with you and look out for you and whatever. Because if you're just sort of in the background all the time, you may even be showing up all the time. But if you don't really get in, they call it like in the herd and stuff like that, then when you start missing, if nobody has your numbers and stuff, they might be thinking in their minds like, hey, we haven't seen Robert in a while or whatever, but nobody has a way to reach out or anything. And then it does get easier and easier when you start missing meetings. You're like, well, nothing fell apart right away or whatever. And
nobody called looking for me or anything either. So I'm good.
It's not that big of a deal. I'll go back. You tell yourself, just like that gym, I'll go back. I'll get back in the routine. And it's quick how it's
well, you hit it right on the spot. And the other thing that I would add to that is that, or on top of, is that it's like with anything else. When you go see the doctor, we go because, as you get older too, you're going to the doctor more. You have to eat every day. There's certain things that you have to do. You have to go to work. You have to maintain your life. And that's what was eye-opening to me, was the mental health part of it. That it's a requirement for us. I don't think that is exclusive to just alcoholics and addicts. I think it's for everybody to make sure that they are doing something to help with their mental health, to stay mentally fit, to stay in that good headspace, and I know people take vacations and people do, go to the gym, people do see doctors, but it's really important that, especially coming off of the years that we just had, the COVID years, that was a wreck. Yeah, it wrecked a lot of people.
Yeah, it was.
It was a wreck, and even if you didn't directly affect your life, which I don't know how it couldn't have, it affected everybody, but it's just something that it's something that you need to do on a regular basis, whatever that is. And for me, it's going to groups. That's what helps me. It's doing this. It's, and finding those things, so that way it is seeing my psychiatrist, it is seeing a counselor, it is seeing a therapist, whatever fits for you. Everybody has various degrees of mental health, but you had anxiety in and out of alcoholism, and I know people that are not alcoholics that have anxiety. I know people with have mental issues, mental health issues that are not related to an addiction or alcoholism. So it's just something that is like, it just put a bright spot for me to make sure that I'm doing, to make sure my kids are doing, because it's stuff that we're learning, things that, the communication stuff, the listening stuff, the
life skills in general. Yeah.
the relationship stuff,
Mm-hmm.
the problem solving stuff, knowing our emotions, how to deal with them. Um, all of that encompass, is a big help for me.
Well, I think staying in touch with it, because I think, I've learned a lot over the years by participating in groups and different things. But if you don't stay like plugged in and discussing those things with people and doing those things, it falls away, like you find yourself thinking like the one time you learned it, you'll always remember it and you'll always use that skill or whatever. But that's not necessarily the case. If you get away from an environment where people have kind of a common, thing they're focused that they're working on, then you can get out of a habit of kind of using those skills, and you will kind of start to forget to use those skills that you've learned. So it's not necessarily like a one time through, you learn it all, now you've mastered it, and you're
It's
gonna
like
go through life and have these skills.
Yeah, it's like us trying to go outside and run a race right now. I can't run a race. I mean, I could probably run, but I'm going to probably die after about 20 feet.
I'll race you guys, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I think we're about.
But it's you're no longer, even though you know how to do it.
Yeah.
That muscle is not there to be able to get through it. So, how many days do you have, Ramil?
139 days now.
Nice, man.
Yeah, never thought I'd see that. Never planned to see it. And then when I started, I was like, yeah, 30 days will probably be awesome. I knock that out. Everybody will forget all the trouble I got into, and I can get back to drinking. But who would have thought I enjoy being sober more than I enjoyed drinking and ruining my life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I'm always like, that's something whether my life was a wreck and chaos and screwed up or not, like when I would go to meetings and see new people that like kind of like your story, this is the first time you even tried to stop and stuff like that, I'm like, man, I hope you get it. Like, I hope you really stick to it, just because, and it's, I guess in some ways it's just because I have that experience of being in that phase, 20 years ago or whatever, where I was like trying to stop and wanting to get it, but then, losing the drive to keep it and needing to experience whatever I did. And, I've heard that idea of like, bottoms getting shallower for people and stuff like that, where a lot of the original people in 12-step programs and stuff that got sober were all really pretty bad, severe, and then over the years, it's like, it doesn't have to get that bad.
Yeah.
Though. You can learn from the people who kind of come ahead of you. And it's nice to know that, some people like you are kind of like that open-minded, willing, kind of honest with yourself kind of thing, to get it without having to go through that, because there's nothing good about it. And if you really do believe in your heart that you're alcoholic or you're whatever, you relate to that label or whatever, then
I didn't. I don't know if you remember when I first got there. I know. I definitely didn't relate to it.
Yeah, we remember.
Well, and the whole thing you talked about, the heavy drinker thing and all that stuff, like that definitely took me out more than once in my early years of being familiar with that literature and stuff, and going, that's what I think. I think sufficient, but for me, apparently sufficient, given sufficient, circumstances or whatever it says.
I can stop.
You could stop. Yeah. Well, mine, sufficient circumstances apparently needed to be, being completely suicidal and losing everything. And it wasn't just.
But you reasoned with yourself and convinced yourself that that was sufficient. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought, well, and that was something that hit me hard, because I thought before I had my son, because I had years of struggling with alcohol and drugs before that. Yeah. Before even that marriage and stuff, I thought, well, if I ever have a kid, I'll just never do this stuff again. And then I had a kid, and then I still did it, and it was like humbling to me, because I was like
Yeah.
I can't even live up to my own promises of like, if I have a kid, I'll stop.
I
And
think that hit us all.
Yeah.
Yeah, when nothing changes after the birth of your child, and it's like, oh no, I'm still doing the same thing out here. You're right. That's a hard pill to swallow.
and even like, you know, telling myself like, there's kind of a difference between like, oh, my wife's just a little frustrated with my drinking or something versus, you know, when your wife's finally like telling you like, you got an issue and I don't want to deal with it anymore or whatever. And telling myself like, if it ever got to that place, like I would definitely stop to save my marriage or whatever. But then I overstepped that boundary, you know. It was like, I even got to the point where I'm like, I'm probably not going to stop drinking. So you just need to do whatever you need to do.
Man.
And that was sad, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't enough, a good enough reason out there for me to stop. Because it was like the only thing that seemed to help me. And once I was wrapped into it, there was nothing, it wasn't even like a positive thing, but the way I felt when I stopped drinking, I couldn't tolerate. Like it didn't matter. It wasn't just a mindset of like, I got this anymore or any of that. It was like, I have to have it. Like I can't even feel okay without drinking anymore. Like it was just bad. But I don't know, something definitely was able to change, because for this last 170 days, you know, well, the first week or two was pretty rough on me.
Yeah.
But as far as just, I mean, I didn't actually want to drink, but I was definitely going through the withdrawals. And
your body was saying,
yeah, my body wanted to drink
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
But mentally I was like,
What's that song? My body.
Oh
My
man,
body.
don't do it to us.
Yeah. Well, Robert, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for stepping up and coming out here and hanging out with us. You know, it's a good talk. It's actually our longest podcast. So
really?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah, we
pretty
had a good
deep,
one.
man. Yeah.
That's what happens when you get lost in a good time.
We'll do this. We'll do this again. You know, I hope to have all my guests back again. You know, when you you know, a few months or so.
Well, I appreciate you, you know, kind of inviting me out. It's funny because when you first asked me a while back, you know, it's like, I feel like part of the gang or whatever, because even getting invited. So it's like, I wanted to do it, but then I kind of got busy with what I was doing. And so when you mentioned it again the other day, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I need to get over there and do that, because it's something I really wanted to do. And I'm glad you're doing it. You
Part
know?
of the gang.
Yeah.
You're right in the middle of the herd, brother.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah, so you're over there in your one spot that you never get out from.
And you wrote his name on the bottom of the chair.
Yeah.
Nobody else can sit there.
It is funny how that bothers me when I show up and people are sitting there.
That's probably
Just a little bit.
Graduation nights,
Dude, don't
right?
they know?
Don't they know?
It's always on Tuesdays because people bring their family, and I guess
You
that's
gotta get there
close
early,
to the door.
man.
Right.
You gotta get there early.
Oh man.
But yeah, man, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks again for having me, and I'll look forward to all of our sobriety and where we are, you know, in the future. So
Yeah, for sure.
Heck yeah.
Thanks, Ramil.
Of course, Sam.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, we'll take care.
You know it.